So I was up with Zan on a little camping overnight that he had with his class.
You were camping?
With a GL in front of it a little bit.
He wasn't in a tent. Let's just say that.
It was at any rate.
Okay. Winnebago?
He's hanging out with his friends, and I'm like, what reading can I do? And I came upon our next guest's article on who's available in free agency by position, and then who's available in the combine by position, and what teams should be able to think about. Do they want to, because that's the conversation to be had over the next few weeks, is building your roster and how best to find your person through the draft and how best to find them through free agency, which is first. And if you don't get them in free agency, then what do you do in the draft? And it's a fascinating puzzle that this is required reading, I think, for all of us here, to be honest with you. It took me 2 sittings to get through it. But thankfully, Zan was having so much fun with his friends at camp. I got through it because it was really good. Ben Solak here on the Rich Eisen Show, ESPN national NFL analyst. Check out his work on the ESPN app and ESPN.com. Good to see you, Ben. How are you?
Well, my editor appreciates that 2 settings comment. Now I'm going to have to turn in shorter copy moving
forward.
No,
don't do that. No. But by the way, to heck with that, because I understand this day and age, you know, even the New York Times tells you how long the read is going to be for you to click on it. I don't care. It's comprehensive. You gave me some terrific information, and it is soup to nuts. And again, like what I just said that really struck me is, what do you do when you're in a position of need and you look at the combine and then you look at free agency, and then you're like, do you have a plan for free agency that you then need to back up if you don't get your guy, or do you change up midstream? And which is the deepest position, combine and free agency, going into the next few weeks in your estimation? Ben.
Edge rusher for sure. There's so many guys, right? And that's before we even get to the Max Crosby trade. Like, just free agency wise, Trey Hendrickson is up and Jalen Phillips are up. Both those guys are big deals. Odafe Owe, who had an enormous year with the Chargers right after the trade from the Ravens. His film, like I was much more impressed watching back on film, where I was like, oh shoot, like this feels like, 10, 12 sack guy. But then you get deeper, right? And you start talking about the boy Mafe, who's coming out of Seattle. He's available. Caleb on Chasen, Joey Bosa's up this year. Like, there's just dudes on dudes at edge rusher this year in free agency. And if there's not a particular body type that you're looking for, the draft is great this year for these like bigger, longer, stronger guys. Zion Young out of Missouri, Gabe Jackas out of Illinois. There's some like denser dudes. If you can't find an edge rusher in this class, man, then you can't find an edge rusher. Like, I don't know what to tell you. There's so many guys this year.
Yeah, I think Mac as well is available if you want to go snag him. So there's some real OGs. And again, I'm just wondering the fact that Tank Lawrence, after a decade in the business, being added to Seattle, where they love just constantly churning one defensive lineman fresh off the bench after another, that might not be another reason why you could just sit back and maybe get an OG, get somebody who's been at it for a while.
And Lawrence is a really important name to bring up because he was so good on running downs for Seattle. The way Seattle's defense works, they need their defensive ends to play like a gap and a half, right? Some of that run stopping 2-gap stuff. Lawrence was the second best edge in the league by run stop EPA this year. Only Crosby was better. And so, like, he's a 30-year-old coming off a foot injury, but he's always been so good on rush downs. So you look at a Khalil Mack, who is he beyond his peak as a pass rusher? Absolutely. But the rushing down stuff is crazy. And like, if you're going to run this Jesse Minter, Mike McDonald defense that's proliferating, you need at least one edge who's like a capital D dude in the running game. Mack fits that mold. Jadeveon Clowney's up. He's always been that guy. Kingsley Enagbare from the Packers is up. Like, if you need your run-stopping defensive end, which now is a little bit of a prototype these days, he's available this year.
What about the middle of the defensive line? What about that group, Ben?
It's such a bad year for defensive tackle. I have no idea why, like if it had something to do with the market or how contracts got signed, but Milton Williams last year was like our big free agent surprise, $26 million, huge contract. This year, the best free agent defensive tackle is John Franklin Myers, who was a rotational guy for the Broncos, still a good player, a little bit older. And then after that, it is Calais Campbell, if he wants to come back. It's David Onyemata. It's Sheldon Rankins. It's a lot of like the familiar, 1 year, $6 million guys that we typically hear about. It is not a good year for defensive tackle. And then the draft is a lot of unsure dudes. Peter Woods out of Clemson, Caleb Banks out of Florida. We expect both these guys to go round 1, but it's more of like a ooh, weird class, bad positional value, less of like, oh my gosh, Dexter Lawrence is in this class. It's not that caliber. So defensive tackle this year, I don't think it's going to be the year you see a lot of movement. It might be some weirdly big contracts in free agency, just as guys go like, reaching for the middle tier of options because the top tier isn't there at all.
I'm trying to put two and two together here because we had Kyle Van Noy on this show last week, Ben, and he was talking about how, he feels defensive tackle is becoming the elite defensive line grouping now because edge rushers sometimes can't get to the quarterback fast enough in this day and age of a quick release and this day and age of maybe chipping guys along with your left tackles, and that the defensive tackle group is more of a, I guess, Tiffany grouping right now. And you're saying that there's few on the market. Maybe it's just because, teams that won't let them go. Like they're going to re-sign these guys. Right?
Yeah, these guys they're getting re-signed. And we also, like, if you look at just the final four teams, Seattle against the Rams, the NFC, Broncos against the Patriots in the AFC, those teams are defined by their defensive tackle play, right? Christian Barmore and Milton Williams going against Zach Allen and Malcolm Roach. What Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk had been on the interior, Puna Ford there with Seattle. And then we all know with the Rams, we all know with Seattle, Byron Murphy there and Dexter Lawrence. Like you have to build defenses through the spine. That's what we're seeing in the modern NFL, up the middle, right? Starting defensive tackle and then moving back to linebacker into safety. So these guys are getting secured for big contracts now because the market was a little bit depreciated. They weren't getting those big deals. So once we realized their value, it's easy to sign them. Now you're seeing that top of the market expand where Milton Williams is getting that huge money, where Jeffrey Simmons and Chris Jones are signing these massive extensions. When guys like Jalen Carter and Kobe Turner start to hit free agency in the next 1 to 2 years, that's when you're going to see, okay, this market really takes off. And now maybe we'll see a little bit of a settling down and we'll see some more guys enter free agency.
And ESPN NFL writer Ben Solak, fresh off of the article I read over the weekend, a soup to nuts full primer on who's available free agency and combine over the next 6 weeks right here on the Rich Eisen Show. The deepest offensive grouping then, the where you're happy that you're in the market right now for this position because they're deep at the combine and free agency is what, Ben?
Interior offensive line, which there's not a lot of centers as per usual because there's only 32 guys. Like that's not a spot that we see a ton of movement, but Tyler Linderbaum is in this class, and Linderbaum's probably going to dramatically reset the center market if he gets out of Baltimore. Even if he stays in Baltimore, we're looking at who he's going to beat Creed Humphrey and have that biggest deal. And then it's the guard spot where David Edwards has been great from Buffalo. You have Isaac Seumalo coming out of Pittsburgh. Elijah Vera Tucker, who's an easy guy to forget. You missed the entire season with a torn triceps, but he was looking at being one of the highest paid guards before he started to get hurt. Interior offensive line is one of those spots that is more modular in the NFL. It is easier to go get a guy from a different system, drop him in, and get immediate success out of that player. I know there's some teams right now like the Lions who are telling me, no, it's not that easy. But in general, it is an easier thing to do. And so you should expect to see a lot of interior offensive line movement in free agency. And then draft-wise, we've got a good number of bodies this year, right? Center is weirdly undersized. There's a lot of smaller zone dudes. If you need a big center, you're kind of in trouble. But there's multiple, Francis Maui Noah, who's out of Miami, might be a top 5 pick who gets moved to guard. Emmanuel Pregnan out of Oregon, Vega Ione out of Penn State. We're expecting, I would say, about 4 top 50 guards to go in this class. And so it's a good year to need a guard. And, every team needs offensive line improvement.
And what about skilled position for all due respect to offensive line?
You see, when you say offensive position, my head goes to the guys in the trenches, right? That's what we got to build our championship
I got
teams
you.
now.
I got you. Because, Ben, this is a fantasy football world we live in.
Right.
Come on.
Then, running backs, this year for running back free agent class is great, right? You're looking at Breece Hall at the top. You guys were talking about Kenneth Walker coming out of Seattle before the break, Travis Etienne as well. And then there's like a great mystery box tier. There's the Rico Dowdle coming into free agency again. He had 1,000 yards with the Cowboys, didn't get the big deal, had to take the 1 year with the Panthers, and then had 1,000 yards that season too. And so you have Rico back in here. Tyler Algier is in this market. He was a 1,000-yard rusher for the Falcons before they drafted Bijan Robinson. Algier's a guy I'm really excited to see where he goes. Kenneth Gainwell, who obviously showed you, hey, if you have a quarterback who just wants to throw it to the back, I could be a 90-catch player over the course of a full season if you want. It's a really, really cool rotational group of backs this year. And the class for running back is really rough after Jeremiah Love. It is not a good year in the draft for running backs. And
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Not a lot of rotational players, but when we talk about rotational players coming out of the draft, those guys usually take some time to get on the field because they have to learn NFL protections. It's a lot harder to get a rookie out there as your third down back as opposed to just getting Kenneth Gainwell and plugging and chugging. And so weak year for running back after Love. The second best back in this class is probably Love's backup at Notre Dame. Jadarian Price is most likely going to be RB2 off the board. So this is going to be a year where I think you see Walker, Breece Hall definitely, and then Travis Etienne as well get more money than you're thinking right now in the open market because nobody wants to draft any of these guys after Jeremiah Love.
Ben Solak here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I guess maybe that's why Dallas is like, yeah, let's sign Javonte Williams, right? Like, interesting. So maybe Kenneth Walker stays in Seattle, right? I don't know, but that's a pretty deep. You named some really good professional running backs that are going to be hitting free agency unless they get franchise tagged.
Yeah.
Ben.
Before the playoffs, I would have told you Kenneth is staying in Seattle. 70% yes, 30% no.
Right.
After that postseason, I mean, the young man made himself $3 million a year easily, right? I mean, he was highly explosive, 3 straight games of 100 yards from scrimmage. He showed more as a receiver. Obviously, wins the Super Bowl MVP. To me, if I'm Kenneth Walker's agent, anything below the Josh Jacobs deal, which was 4 years, $48 million, $12 million per year, I'm laughing at, right? Not after we just won a championship, all right? I would like to see my guy get paid. And Seattle's got free agents, right? They have Rashid Shaheed they potentially need to sign. Kobe Bryant starting safety is up this year. Rick Woolen corners up for them this year. And so they might not want to be in with Walker at that price tag, especially because there are the Tyler Algiers and Kenneth Gainwell's available and Rico Dowdle in this class. And so I would say now Walker percent chance he stays in Seattle, I'd put it like 45%. I think that it's closest to a coin flip, but if you made me guess, water gun to my head, I think he gets out of Seattle.
Okay, and then the concept of the wide receiver market, how does it look, Ben?
Yeah, wide receiver's tricky because there's always guys because we play 3 of them on every single snap, and we have wide receiver 4 still does stuff for us. Like there's always bodies on bodies on bodies. So you kind of have to measure it just against past years of wide receiver. You can't measure it against like center where there's only ever 1 or 2 dudes available. This year, I would not say is a strong wide receiver class. Free agent, there's some good rotational players. Jawan Jennings is a great blocker. Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot. Rashid Shaheed, the speed element. Those guys are there. And then there's a couple of okay, can you be like a real wide receiver 1 or 2 for me? That's Alec Pierce out of Indianapolis, who led the league yards per reception, yards per target, air yards per target this year. Explosive downfield player. Can he run some more routes? Can he be a little bit more of a 3-level weapon for us? There's Mike Evans. We have no question that he can be that, but how long in the tooth is he? How healthy is he coming off a little bit of an injury-riddled season? And then Romeo Doubs, who's really quite the conundrum out of Green Bay. Everybody I talk to, everybody likes Romeo Doubs. Like there's no question it's good play. Why did he never fully control wide receiver 1? Why did he never start demanding targets and consolidating there? He had the exact same target per route share over all 4 years in Green Bay, like 22%, just like solid Eddie Steady wide receiver 2 Jacoby Myers play. So nobody really knows exactly how high that ceiling is. And so a few guys who might be able to have big impacts on their next team. I think Pierce is going to make somewhere around $24 million per year, the Nico Collins deal, but you're still squinted. You're still trying to see the forest through the trees a little bit with Pierce. It's not a knockout year for wide receiver in free agency.
Well, how do you handicap the quarterback carousel over the next 6 weeks, combine and draft? Because again, at the combine, we'll talk. We had Louis Riddick on hour 1. He's talking about Ty Simpson, Nussmeier, Beck. Right after that, you're really beginning to get further down. One would think a draft list, and then free agency. Stafford's not in this mix. Rodgers, if he's in it, he's only going to one team. How do you see it, Ben?
Yeah, it's Lewis's job to hype up the Nussmeyers and the Becks of the world. It's my job to be like, listen, we're trading for Spencer Rattler before we're drafting one of these guys. There's certainly. There's mystery box potential there. There's dart throw in the dark potential there with some of those guys. But I think you're going to see a really active year trading for quarterback 2s on the bottom of some of these rosters. If you think about the Colts, if they give Daniel Jones a multi-year deal, I'm calling about Anthony Richardson. And I'm seeing if I can, put him next to Jacoby Brissett in a camp battle and see if they can win that out. Spencer Rattler, who I thought really improved year 1 to year 2, but then lost the job to Tyler Shuck. He's who the new coaching staff had invested in. But the film is pretty good on Spencer Rattler. Tanner McKee, who's there with the Eagles. Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans. He lost the job to Cam Ward. You're going to see these guys get investigated as trade options because the quarterback class is just so perilously thin behind Fernando Mendoza. And so the teams that miss out on Kyler and Tua, which I think, about 6-7 teams that have a need. There's Kyler, Tua, and then there's the Malik Willis free agent carousel. After that, you're going to have 3 or 4 teams left wanting. And to me, those teams are going to take the big home run swing. Nobody thinks it's going to connect. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. But if you can get a rookie contract starter out of Spencer Rattler, it kind of saves your job for a couple of years. So to me, what I'm looking for when I head to Indianapolis and the scuttlebutt on some of these young quarterback twos who aren't going to break into quarterback one on their own team, but can I go trade a middle round pick for them instead of, spending it on a Carson Beck?
Tell me the teams that are going to do that. And, I mean, because that's a gamble, man. I understand you're like, hey, can't battle between Jacoby Brissett and Anthony Richardson. Or,
it doesn't get you fired up, does it?
Or can't battle between veteran and Tanner McKee or whatever. I mean, it could make sense on paper, and it could make sense in a room where you're stacking players on a board or on a grease board, but then you got to sell it to a fan base, and you got to play football with it with a head coach that needs to win games more likely than not. Give me the teams that would take a flyer on your methodology right there, Ben Solak.
So I think Miami has to take a lot of cap lumps this year in order to get off the Tua deal. And we already know they're moving on from Tyreek Hill. They might be trading more players. So I think Miami's going to be a team that tries to be in the Malik Willis sweepstakes. John Eric Sullivan, he's from Green Bay.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's one thing. Yeah. Malik Willis, you had me at hello there. Honestly, I think he's going to have his choices. And I think he's going to have teams that are like, we want you. And he'll be like, yeah, the roster's not there. I don't know about the coach. Like, I think he's going to have choices this time around.
I 100% agree.
I'm like, which team is going to say, I will, instead of drafting a kid, I'd rather take a flyer and see if he's my next one or a bridge quarterback even. Like, who's going to do that?
So I think the Jets, we know that Aaron Glenn likes mobile quarterbacks. They have Justin Fields there on like their veteran deal. I think you can sign Malik Willis for roughly the same deal, probably a little bit more. The Browns, to me, are a team where Todd Monken just worked with Lamar Jackson. That's a very copy and paste offense in terms of stylistically how Willis plays and how Lamar plays. Arizona is the other team. Monty Ossenfort, general manager there, was in Tennessee when Malik Willis was drafted by the Titans. So I think those three teams are going to be aggressively in on Willis, along with the Dolphins. Like I said, that Packers familiarity. And I just don't think the Dolphins have the cap to last in a bidding war if that's what this gets for Willis. And like, I don't think Willis is going to get insanely overpaid, but it is not a year to walk into the draft with a quarterback need. I can't stress that enough. And so I think Willis, if I had to go between, there's that Justin Fields deal at $20 million per year, and then the next highest deal is Baker at $30 million. Excuse me. There's like a $10 million gap between those two deals. I think he's going to land somewhere in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's closer to the Baker deal. And so those are the teams to me that go in on Willis. And then if you can't get that done, and you're sitting there, and you don't have draft capital to move on from because you're a rebuilding team, then you have to be looking at these younger quarterback twos as your bridges into 2027 and a much better quarterback class.
Ben, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it. And thanks for the great read and great information. You helped me get set for the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. You take care.
You bet. That's Ben Solak. Everybody check out his article on ESPN, the app, and ESPN.com if you are more of an online internet type. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.